May 9th, 1863. Dear Diary, today Mary decoded letters from her own family and discovered something impossible. The Foundation's headquarters has been hiding inside the U.S. Capitol building itself. For 200 years, the organization that's been trying to destroy American democracy has been operating from the very heart of our government. After the rescue from the Northington Hotel, Mary had been exhausted, traumatized, but refusing to rest. She'd insisted on returning to her intelligence work immediately, claiming that every hour wasted was another hour the organization could prepare for May 15th. "There's something I need to show you," she'd said that morning, spreading out dozens of letters on our dining table. Letters from my family in Kentucky, my brothers, my cousins, relatives fighting for the Confederacy. I'd assumed they were personal correspondence until Mary revealed what she'd discovered hidden in them. "Abraham, look at these carefully. Not the words on the surface, but the patterns. The way certain phrases are repeated, certain words emphasized, dates mentioned seemingly at random." I studied the letters more closely. At first glance, they appeared to be normal family correspondence, discussions of plantation life, complaints about war shortages, personal gossip. But as Mary pointed out patterns, I began to see it. Every third letter contained a number sequence. Every fifth word in specific paragraphs, when read together, formed coordinates. Dates mentioned in seemingly casual conversation aligned with known organization meetings. Have you ever discovered a hidden message in plain sight? Tell us in the comments. Your family has been using these letters to communicate organization intelligence? I asked, the implication staggering. "Not willingly," Mary said, her voice tight with anger and pain. "They think they're writing innocent letters to their Union relative, trying to maintain family connections during the war. They don't know the organization is dictating certain phrases, inserting specific details that mean nothing to them, but everything to people who know the code." It was another layer of the organization's cruelty. They'd turned Mary's family, people who loved her, into unwitting intelligence couriers. Every loving message from her brothers contained encoded coordinates and meeting schedules that Mary was presumably meant to intercept and act upon. "The organization knew you were running your own intelligence network," Rose said, studying the letters. "They were feeding you information through your family, trying to control what you learned and when you learned it. But they made a mistake," Mary continued, pulling out one particular letter. This one, from my brother Levi, dated April 23rd. It talks about visiting our old family estate near Lexington, mentions specific rooms, specific architectural details. She overlaid a map of Washington on top of the letter, aligning certain phrases with street names, certain room descriptions with building layouts. "It's not describing an estate in Kentucky," she said quietly. "It's describing rooms inside the Capitol building. The Foundation's actual headquarters is hidden in the oldest sections of the Capitol, disguised as storage and maintenance areas that nobody pays attention to." Stanton, who'd been listening silently, spoke up. "That's impossible. The Capitol is one of the most public buildings in America. Congressmen, staff, visitors, thousands of people pass through daily." "Which makes it perfect," Davis said. He'd been staying in a secure White House guest room, an irony neither of us mentioned. Who would think to look for a secret organization in the most visible government building? Everyone assumes important conspiracies hide in shadows, not in plain sight. "The old sections," I said, thinking about the Capitol's layout. "The original building from the 1790s, before the expansions. Parts of it were damaged in the War of 1812, supposedly sealed off and forgotten. But if the organization has been here since the beginning, they've had access to those sealed sections all along," Mary finished. 200 years to build whatever they needed, to create spaces that official building records don't even acknowledge exist. But then Harrison, still recovering from his injuries, revealed something that made the situation even more dangerous. If the Foundation is in the Capitol, then we need to understand what we're actually dealing with. This isn't just an office or meeting room. Based on the organization's resources and the time they've had, they've likely built a fortified complex with defensive systems, escape routes, possibly even weapon stockpiles. You're talking about assaulting a fortress that's inside a public building filled with innocent people, Stanton said. How do we even approach that without causing a massacre or destroying the Capitol itself? Davis studied the map Mary had created. We'd need to evacuate the building without alerting the Foundation that we know their location. Create some reason for the Capitol to be cleared. A fire, a structural emergency, something that seems legitimate. And we'd need to move fast, Rose added. The moment they realize we've found them, they'll either activate their May 15th plan early or destroy evidence and disappear. I looked at the calendar. May 9th, 6 days until the planned attacks. But if we alerted the Foundation now, they might strike immediately. We have another problem, I said. Even if we successfully raid the Foundation headquarters, we still don't know where all the explosives are planted. Chase gave us information about the White House and Confederate Executive Mansion, but the documents we found suggested dozens of targets. That's why we need to capture Foundation leaders alive, Mary said firmly. Force them to reveal everything. All the explosive locations, all the coordinated attacks, all the backup plans. We spent the next 12 hours planning what would become the most audacious operation of the war, a joint Union-Confederate raid on a secret fortress inside the U.S. Capitol building, led personally by both presidents, with the goal of capturing the organization that had been manipulating American politics for 2 centuries. This is insanity, Stanton kept repeating. Both presidents, personally leading an assault on our own Capitol building. If this goes wrong, if you're both killed, the organization wins everything. If we don't do this, they win anyway, I replied. 6 days, Edwin. That's all we have. That evening, Davis and I met privately in my study. The surreal nature of the Confederate president and Union president planning a military operation together in the White House wasn't lost on either of us. You understand this doesn't change the fundamental disagreements between us, Davis said. When this is over, if we survive, we'll still be at war over principles that neither of us can compromise on. I understand. Slavery is still evil. The Confederacy's cause is still wrong. But you're still a man fighting for what you believe in. And the organization is evil in a way that transcends our political differences. Davis nodded slowly. They killed my wife. They manipulated my career. They've been using the Confederacy as a tool to achieve goals that have nothing to do with Southern independence. When I think about how many men have died for what I thought was our cause, only to discover it was their agenda all along. Willie's death haunts me every day, I said. Knowing it was deliberate, knowing he was murdered to destabilize my decision-making. But what haunts me more is thinking about all the other sons, other fathers, who've died because the organization wanted to keep us fighting. That's why we're doing this, Davis said. Not just for revenge, though God knows we've earned that, but to make sure all those deaths mean something. That the war we've been fighting becomes a war we chose, not one chosen for us. It was the closest we'd ever come to understanding each other. We were still enemies, but we were enemies who respected each other enough to fight together against a greater evil. But the next morning, we received intelligence that forced us to move faster than we'd planned. A message from Lee, who'd returned to Richmond but maintained communication through secure channels. Organization activating emergency protocols. Multiple operatives converging on Washington. Estimate they know you've discovered Capitol location. Timeline critical. They're preparing to evacuate, Rose said, reading the message. If they clear out the Foundation headquarters before we can raid it, we lose everything. The leadership, the documents, the evidence we need. How long do we have? I asked. Hours, maybe. A day at most. Stanton looked stricken. We're not ready. The evacuation plan for the Capitol isn't complete. The assault teams aren't fully briefed. We haven't even finalized the approach routes. Then we go with what we have, Davis said decisively. Improvise, adapt. Use the element of speed to compensate for lack of preparation. Within 2 hours, we'd assembled our forces. 50 Union soldiers handpicked by Stanton. 30 Confederate troops who'd remained in Washington after the Nothington rescue. Mary's intelligence operatives. Harrison's faction defectors. Rose coordinating everything with the efficiency of a master spy. And at the center of it all, 2 presidents preparing to personally assault their own government building. The evacuation story is gas leak, Stanton explained as we moved into position. Capitol staff are being told there's a dangerous gas leak in the old sections. Everyone needs to evacuate immediately for safety. It gives us maybe 30 minutes before people start questioning the story. 30 minutes to breach the Foundation, capture the leadership, and secure 2 centuries of evidence, I said. Should be simple. Davis actually smiled grimly at that. Nothing about this has been simple since the beginning. We approached the Capitol building from multiple directions, trying to look like normal response teams dealing with an emergency. The evacuation was proceeding smoothly, congressmen and staff streaming out, looking annoyed but compliant. But as we entered through the main doors, I felt the weight of what we were attempting. This building represented American democracy itself. The fact that it had been hosting the organization trying to destroy that democracy for 200 years was a violation that went beyond mere espionage or political manipulation. East Wing, lower levels, Mary said, following the decoded coordinates from her family letters. There's a maintenance corridor that should lead to the sealed sections. We moved through increasingly old parts of the building. The architecture changed, becoming more primitive, more colonial. These were the original walls, the foundation laid by the nation's founders, and somewhere within them, the organization had built their stronghold. But when we reached the supposedly sealed corridor, we found something that proved the foundation knew we were coming. The door to the sealed section was standing open. Beyond it, electric lights illuminated a modern corridor that shouldn't exist in this old part of the building. And in the corridor, arranged almost casually, were bodies, organization operatives, all dead, all killed recently. It's a massacre, Rose said, examining the nearest body. Shot from behind, execution style. These people were killed by their own organization. Cleaning house, Davis said grimly. Eliminating anyone who might talk if captured. The Foundation leadership is destroying evidence, including human evidence. We moved carefully through the corridor, passing more bodies. Some I recognized from the Baltimore meeting. Others were strangers, but all wore the organization's medallions. The Foundation was purging its own membership to prevent anyone from revealing secrets. The corridor opened into a large chamber that took my breath away. It was massive, clearly excavated over decades or centuries, reinforced with modern materials. Electric lights powered by generators. Telegraph equipment. File rooms containing what appeared to be thousands of documents. Meeting spaces. Living quarters. A complete underground complex that had existed beneath the Capitol for who knew how long. And in the center of it all, calmly burning documents in a large furnace, stood a woman I'd never seen before. She was perhaps 70, elegantly dressed, with white hair and eyes that showed no fear despite being surrounded by armed men. "Mr. President Lincoln," she said pleasantly, as if we'd met at a social function. "And Mr. President Davis. How unexpected to have both of you visit our humble headquarters." "Who are you?" I demanded. "My name is Constance Blackwood. I've had the honor of serving as the Foundation's Director of American Operations for the past 40 years. Before that, my mother held the position. And before her, my grandmother. The Blackwood family has been guiding American development since the Revolution." She continued feeding documents into the furnace with methodical efficiency. "You're destroying evidence," Davis said. "Of course. Did you think we'd leave documentation for you to use against us? The Foundation has survived for centuries because we're thorough. When an operation is compromised, we eliminate all traces and rebuild elsewhere." "You're not leaving," Stanton said, gesturing to his soldiers to surround her. Constance smiled. "Oh, but I am. You see, this entire complex is rigged with explosives, real explosives, not the sophisticated devices Mr. McMaster's installed in your buildings. Simple, effective dynamite that will collapse this entire section of the Capitol if I don't send the proper signal every 10 minutes. She held up a small device, a dead man switch. "If I let go of this button, or if I fail to send the deactivation code at the correct interval, everything goes. You, me, this complex, and anyone in the Capitol building who didn't evacuate. I estimate 300 casualties, maybe more. You're willing to die to protect the Foundation?" I asked. "I'm willing to die to protect the principle the Foundation represents. Personal survival is less important than the mission. Surely you, of all people, understand that, Mr. Lincoln. How many soldiers have died for your principles?" The comparison was obscene, but I couldn't deny the twisted logic. We'd both sent people to die for causes we believed in. The difference was the cause itself: democracy versus hereditary control, freedom versus manipulation. "Let us take one document," Mary said suddenly. "One piece of evidence that you choose. Then we let you walk away with your dead man switch." Constance looked at Mary with interest. "Mrs. Lincoln, the intelligence operative hiding as a first lady. You've been quite the thorn in our side. One document, Mary repeated. Proof that the foundation existed, enough to expose your operations even if we can't prosecute everyone involved. In exchange, you walk free and this complex doesn't explode. Constance considered this for a moment, then pulled a single file from a cabinet she hadn't yet burned. This is the founding charter of the foundation, signed in 1763 by representatives of British banking houses and certain American colonial families. It outlines our original purpose, to ensure that American independence, should it occur, would never threaten European economic interests. She handed the document to Mary. It won't give you names of current members. It won't reveal our financial networks or operational structure. But it will prove we existed, that we've been operating for centuries, that the conspiracy your husband has been claiming is real. Why give us anything? Davis asked suspiciously. Because the foundation's power comes from doubt. When you claim we exist, but have no proof, people call you paranoid. When you have proof of our existence, people believe your other claims. This document is my gift to you. The truth that will make everything you say afterward sound like insane conspiracy theory once we disappear. She was right, and we all knew it. One historical document proving a 200-year-old conspiracy would make our claims about current operations sound fantastic. The foundation would disappear, rebuild under a different name, and continue their work while we became the paranoid leaders who saw conspiracies everywhere. Unacceptable, I said. You don't get to walk away. You don't get to rebuild and start this again. Then we all die right now, Constance replied calmly. Your choice, Mr. President. Take the document and let me go, or insist on justice and kill everyone in this building. It was the same impossible choice the organization had been forcing on me since this began. Personal principle versus greater good. Justice versus survival. But before I could respond, Davis spoke. Mrs. Blackwood, you've made one critical error in your analysis. Oh, you assumed that Lincoln and I share the same decision-making process. That we both value life over justice in the same way. But I'm not the Union president. I'm not bound by the same political considerations. He pulled out his pistol and shot Constance Blackwood in the shoulder. She screamed and dropped the dead man's switch. Rose dove forward, catching it before it hit the ground. Maintain the signal. Rose shouted to Harrison, who rushed to the telegraph equipment and began sending the deactivation codes. Was Davis right to shoot, or should they have let Constance go? Tell us what you think. Constance clutched her wounded shoulder, blood seeping between her fingers. You fool. You've killed everyone in this building. I don't think so, Davis said calmly. You wanted us to believe the dead man's switch was real, but your organization is too careful. You wouldn't put yourselves in a position where one accident, one mistake, could destroy 2 centuries of evidence. The switch was a bluff. He was right. Harrison confirmed it moments later. There are explosives, but they're not connected to a dead man's switch. They're on timers, and I can disarm them. We had Constance Blackwood, the director of American operations for the organization that had been manipulating our nation for 200 years. We had her headquarters, her files, her equipment. We had proof. But as medical personnel treated her wound and Stanton's men began cataloging evidence, Constance spoke one final time. You think you've won. You think capturing me means the foundation is defeated. But I'm just one director, one operation. The foundation exists in 12 countries, has members in every major government, controls financial networks you can't begin to understand. American operations can be rebuilt within a year. Maybe, I said, but you won't be rebuilding them. You'll be in prison, testifying at trials, watching your entire organization exposed to public scrutiny. Will I? Or will I have an unfortunate accident before trial? Or perhaps I'll be exchanged for some political favor. The Foundation has centuries of experience in retrieving captured operatives. She was trying to break our victory, to make us understand that capturing her changed nothing. And perhaps she was right. Perhaps the Foundation was too large, too entrenched, too experienced at survival to be truly defeated. But what she didn't understand was that we'd already won something more important than her capture. We'd proven that Americans could work together against a common threat. That Union and Confederate leaders could put aside their differences when faced with forces trying to manipulate them both. That transparency and cooperation were stronger than conspiracy and division. But as we began examining the files Constance hadn't burned, We discovered something that made May 15th even more critical. Mary found a calendar marked with operation dates. May 15th was there, yes, but there were also dates before it. May 10th, a planned assassination of General Grant at Vicksburg. May 12th, an attack on state governors meeting in Philadelphia. May 14th, sabotage of munitions factories in 5 cities. The Foundation wasn't putting all their hopes on May 15th, Mary said, her voice shaken. They were planning a week-long cascade of catastrophes, each one designed to weaken America before the final presidential assassinations. May 10th is tomorrow, Stanton said, checking his watch. Grant is in Vicksburg right now, probably within range of the Foundation's sniper. Davis looked at the calendar. And my generals are among the targets for May 12th. The Foundation wanted to decapitate both military commands before attacking political leadership. We'd captured the Foundation's American headquarters, but their operational plans were already in motion. Assassins positioned, explosives planted, a week of coordinated attacks designed to shatter both Union and Confederate governments. We need to send warnings to every target, I said. Immediate telegrams, coded messages, whatever it takes. And we need to accelerate the White House security measures, Stanton added. If they're moving up timelines, May 15th might not be the actual date anymore. Rose was studying another document. There's something else. Backup leadership plans. If the primary operations fail, the Foundation has identified specific individuals to promote into power, people they've already compromised who would implement their agenda willingly. She handed me the list. I recognized every name. Senators, governors, military officers, all positioned to seize power if both presidents were killed and chaos ensued. It's like you said, Davis observed. Cut off one head and 2 more appear. They've planned for every contingency. Not every contingency, Mary said, pulling out another file. They didn't plan for this, a comprehensive list of all their compromised individuals. Names, positions, how they were recruited, what leverage the Foundation holds over them. This is everyone, Abraham. Everyone they've corrupted or manipulated. It was exactly what we needed. Not just proof that the Foundation existed, but specific evidence about specific people. Evidence that could be used to remove compromised individuals from power before they could implement the organization's agenda. This changes everything, I said, reading through the names. With this information, we can neutralize their backup plans. Stop the cascade of assassinations. Prevent May 15th. But then Constance Blackwood, even while wounded and captured, revealed one final piece of information that threatened everything. You look so pleased with yourselves, she said from where she sat, blood-soaked but unbowed. Finding those files, thinking you've won. But there's one name missing from those lists. One person the Foundation has compromised who isn't documented anywhere you'll find. Who? I demanded. Someone so close to you that you'll never believe they're working for us. Someone who's been feeding us information since before you became president. Someone who will ensure that even with all your evidence, even with all your preparations, May 15th will still succeed. You're lying, Mary said, trying to create paranoia and division. Am I? Think about every leak, every operation that failed, every time the Foundation seemed to be one step ahead. Someone has been helping us from the inside of your own inner circle. And when May 15th comes, that person will ensure both presidents die regardless of your preparations. She smiled despite her pain. I'll give you a hint. It's someone you trust absolutely. Someone you'd never suspect. Someone who's in this room right now. We all looked at each other. Stanton, Mary, Rose, Harrison, Davis, the soldiers, the operatives. One of us was a Foundation agent. One of the people we'd trusted completely had been betraying us all along. Don't let her manipulate you, Davis said firmly. This is what she wants, to make us suspect each other, to break the alliance. But the seed of doubt had been planted. Every person in that room was looking at others with new suspicion. Who could it be? Who had been with us long enough, trusted enough, positioned perfectly to sabotage everything? Search her, I ordered. Find proof of this claim or dismiss it as manipulation. They searched Constance thoroughly, found nothing. But the damage was done. The trust we built was cracking under the weight of possible betrayal. May 10th, 1863, midnight. Dear Diary, we've captured the Foundation's American headquarters. We have Constance Blackwood in custody. We have evidence that will expose 2 centuries of conspiracy. We've stopped dozens of operations and saved countless lives. But I can't shake the feeling that we're still missing something. That Constance's final claim about a traitor in our inner circle is more than psychological warfare. I've been betrayed so many times during this crisis. People I trusted revealed as organization members. Friends turned into enemies. Even my own family used as unwitting tools against me. But this feels different. This feels like the final knife, waiting to strike at the moment when I'm most confident in victory. Mary assures me it's just paranoia, that Constance was manipulating us with lies. But Mary also can't explain how the Foundation always seemed to know our plans, how they were always positioned to counter our moves. Tomorrow is May 10th. Grant is supposed to be assassinated at Vicksburg. We've sent warnings, position protection, done everything we can. But if there's really a traitor helping the Foundation, 5 days until May 15th. 5 days to identify the traitor if they exist. 5 days to prepare for attacks we may not fully understand. 5 days to hold together an alliance built on trust that may be fundamentally compromised. The Foundation's headquarters burns tonight. We're destroying what we can't transport, documenting everything else. Constance Blackwood is imprisoned in the most secure cell we have. Her networks are being rolled up, her agents arrested, her operations dismantled. But I can't shake the feeling that the real battle is still ahead. That everything we've accomplished is prelude to the final confrontation. The candle burns low. Tomorrow, Grant faces an assassin we may not stop in time. The day after, more attacks. The day after that, more still. Until May 15th, when everything comes to a head. And somewhere in my inner circle, if Constance is telling the truth, someone is waiting to ensure we fail. I trust Mary absolutely. I trust Davis as much as you can trust an honorable enemy. I trust Stanton, Rose, Harrison, all the people who fought beside us. But Constance's words keep echoing. Someone you trust absolutely. Someone you'd never suspect. Who? But the assassination attempt on Grant would reveal the traitor's identity in the most shocking way possible and force Lincoln to make one final impossible choice. Save Grant and expose the traitor, or let Grant die and preserve the alliance that's the only thing standing between America and the Foundation's complete victory.